It's time for the North Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
That's right. Welcome in another edition of the North Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, where we talk District 1 and 2 athletics week in, week out. My name is Brandon Baney. Going casual today. I've got my Montana Grizzlies hoodie on. Got some Grizz pride. They're off to a 2-0 start. We are joined by our North Idaho resident and expert, Ryan Scaggs. What's going on, Scaggs?
Not much. Just getting a drink of my ginger love. It's like lemon, ginger, pineapple, and it has cayenne pepper in it. And it's intense.
That sounds awful. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's not great. But yeah, no, I like ginger though because it's really good for your stomach. But
I don't like pineapple whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't really notice. I can't taste the pineapple in there because the ginger's so strong in the lemon. It's the cayenne that's getting me. It's like sitting in the back of the throat. My wife got these at Costco, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll give it a try." Yeah,
nope, not happening.
Yeah, I already opened it, so I pretty much probably have to chug it. But yeah, it's intense.
That just sounds awful.
I drink my kombucha. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, I'm not a big pineapple fan. You know, whenever I'm in a group setting and we're ordering pizzas, right? Everyone's like, "Oh, well, what kind of pizza do you want? What kind of toppings?" I always tell them, "Hey, I'm cool with anything except pineapple." You keep
the only thing I'll eat pineapple on is there's a pizza at Fazari's in Clarkston called the Panther. That is the one pizza I can tolerate pineapple on. It's so ridiculously good. But yeah, we're still trying to. That's a plug. I want sponsorship for games, but yes, in trade for free pizza.
Yes, we are looking for that sweet corporate sponsor, and if that sounds like something you'd like to do, you can send an email to Logan at IdahoSports.com. He is
Randy Fazari. Go ahead, do that, please.
All right. Well, let's get into it. I'm wearing my Montana Grizz hoodie. I can't tell if you're wearing. Looks like blue today.
It's just a Costco shirt. You know, where I buy everything. So my wardrobe, tires, food, you know, if you can't get it at Costco, you don't need it.
I thought it might be a Boise State shirt.
No, we're in hiding right now.
Yeah.
Not a great start for the Broncos. Hopefully, I don't know. They got a tall task with an FCS team this week too. North Dakota's pretty good, so should be. Hopefully, we get the W, at least get the monkey off our back. But this isn't a college sports prepcast. But I could go off about the woes of the Broncos right now.
Yeah. So you buy everything at Costco, dude. The Costco here in Coeur d'Alene is nuts. It's like packed all the time.
All the time. All the time. Yeah. No, it's the best time I found out to go is usually at 4:00 on a Tuesday or Friday night, like after 7. Yeah, that's usually when I go.
I came from Pocatello where they have a Costco there, and if we're being honest, it's probably one of the lower end stores in terms of like revenue. It was never busy. It was nice. You always got a parking spot like by the door. You could stroll the aisles and not feel the panic of people everywhere. Yeah, I've got to adjust my Costco settings a little bit now that I'm in North Idaho, man.
It's like combat shopping, man. It's intense. Like sometimes I'll go on a Sunday afternoon and I'm like, why in the world did I do this? Like, but it's, you know, everybody's like, you know, people in Liberty Lake and closer to the Washington state line don't want to go pay sales tax over there. So they'll come over here. But I understand that. Plus you get cheap gas, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we still have sales tax here. It's not like, I guess maybe it's not as bad as Washington.
Yeah, it's not as terrible, but I mean, depends on what you're buying too, because Washington doesn't have the whole grocery tax thing. But that's a whole different. We're getting off the rails pretty fast.
Holy smokes, yeah, we have covered it all here in the first 5 minutes. Let's get back on track here. Hey, let's talk golf. We haven't talked golf this year.
Let's talk golf. Why not? Lakeland's looking pretty good right now for a 4A team. I mean, They won the Post Falls invite the other day.
Yeah, that was a huge breakthrough. They had the individual medalists too in Cannon Steckman. They scored 303. Lewiston was second at 316. That's on the boys' side that we're talking about. On the girls' side at the Post Falls invite, Lewiston wins the team title by 7 strokes over Sandpoint, 321 to 328. And Molly Sibley, she's so good for Lewiston. I feel like she's been there for like 10 years, but she was the individual medalist. She shot a 69. That's pretty.
She had the best overall score of the day. Yeah, no, that was an awesome round by her. So, I mean, the Bengals got a solid program too, but obviously Sibley for the Bengals is legit. So, I'm excited to see how they do kind of down the stretch, because a lot of these teams up north are starting to hit their stride, playing some pretty solid rounds. So we're seeing scores drop, by the week up here, which is nice. But the course conditions up here are phenomenal right now too, so that doesn't hurt too much.
Yeah, and Coeur d'Alene Press up here in North Idaho does a fantastic job of covering golf. I don't know of any other publications. And Lewiston Tribune also. Yeah. But I don't, outside of North Idaho, dude, there's like no golf coverage to be found anywhere. So excellent job, Coeur d'Alene Press, Lewiston Tribune, for shining the spotlight on these young men and women. Coeur d'Alene on Tuesday, Scaggs, you know how it is in North Idaho. If you want to go play the best, you're probably going to have to travel. And they went down to McCall for a tournament down there. But there was a lot of 5A schools there competing. And so for Coeur d'Alene, we always talk about, their program is so strong from the north. I thought this was a good opportunity for them too, to see some teams they don't normally get to.
Yeah, no, and Coeur d'Alene, represents very well. And we know that their program has been, on the upswing for a few years now too. So, and obviously getting a chance to go play in McCall, there's some phenomenal courses down there too. So I think that's a nice little excuse to get away and, go, sneak on some of those courses down there. I know Jug Mountain and a few of the other courses down there are just awesome. So, yeah.
That's where they played, was Jug Mountain. I was just going to say that.
That's an awesome course. I'd go travel down there to play during the middle of the week too. So if I could get out of school.
That's still on my bingo card. I haven't been to McCall yet. I got to get down there for the scenery. Grant Potter from Coeur d'Alene was the medalist at 72 on the boys' side. Coeur d'Alene also won the team title over Rocky Mountain and Bishop Kelly, and they shot a 305. So I think that's a pretty encouraging sign. Now, Eagle's always tough, right? Eagle wasn't there.
Especially on that course. Like that's a great team effort. That's impressive.
Yeah, Coeur d'Alene girls took third in the team race behind Rocky Mountain and Bishop Kelly. So yeah, our North Idaho golfers continuing to do great things, right? Let's talk volleyball. Man, the Lakeland Hawks are on a heater, man. They are rolling right now.
Yeah, no, the Hawks are doing phenomenal. And obviously, I think they beat the second 5A team in 6 days. They beat Lewiston in straight sets, 25-18, 25-22, and 25-10. The Hawks are on a roll. I mean, that team is locked and loaded. We know that they won a state championship a few years back. They're building to form to where they're going to be, a team to be reckoned with in the 4A ranks this year. I don't know as far as a favorite, but necessarily, but they're going to be a team to watch out for. They got some deadly players up front, especially in that line with height. They just play insanely well, and they play together, really well. So Lakeland is on a roll, and look out, because the Hawks are kind of a buzzsaw in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, they went to the Rip a Shot tournament at Freeman High over the weekend in Rockford, Washington, and took second there. Yeah. So they are just like a hot knife through butter right now. Yeah. 5A Post Falls still kind of the crown jewel, but Coeur d'Alene's right there too. Coeur d'Alene Press had this great nugget from their match on Monday. Kylie Munday. And see what I did there? Match on Monday with Kylie Munday. She became the school's all-time leader in kills. She crossed the 1,000 kill mark for her career. And her older sister was the previous record holder,
who I believe is playing at the University of Idaho. So, great job by her and that team. I mean, they're on a roll too. We talk about, Post Falls and what they're doing. That's another another team that, if we're looking towards the postseason, them and Coeur d'Alene, like those are two opponents anywhere statewide. That's a tough, tall order. No pun intended to account for.
Yeah, Allison Munday was the previous record holder. Now it's Kylie Munday. Post Falls in that tri match on Monday, swept Moscow, and then got swept by Gonzaga Prep. But hey, anytime you can play G Prep, you're going to get better, no matter what happens, win, lose, or draw. So.
Well, that's that GSL is you look at it. You saw, I think it was Lake City or Coeur d'Alene that lost to Meade. From Spokane. The GSL this year in volleyball is absolutely loaded. So, I mean, losing to a Spokane school isn't necessarily something to hang your head about. If you can play tough against either of those programs, you're doing all right. Those teams are two of the better teams in the state of Washington.
Yeah, it's really impressive to see what they've been able to do thus far. I was trying to look ahead on the schedule, what lies ahead for these IEL teams in volleyball. And then there was one more volleyball tidbit I wanted to touch on involving the Troy Trojans, the locomotive that just steamrolls everybody in 1A D1 volleyball. But in the 5A ranks, you look at Post Falls is 2-0 in league play, 6-1 overall. Coeur d'Alene's 1-1, 4-2. We talked about Coeur d'Alene and Post Falls have already played once this year. The Trojans won 3-1. The rematch doesn't come until the very end of the season, October 3rd. So a lot of time between now and then to see how these two fare in the rematch. But I wanted to talk about Troy Trojan volleyball. They swept Lapway last week. And in the process, in the first set, Ryan, tell me if you've ever seen this before. In the first set, Jolie Eklund served all 25 points. They won 25-0. Jolie Eklund just kept serving.
I've never heard of that. The only time I've ever seen that maybe like in church league or something like that. That's unheard of. That is an insane. I've never heard of that happening in high school. I'm sure it probably has somewhere along the line, but that is unbelievable.
And you can tell I'm a volleyball novice because when I said Jolie Eklund was serving and I went to demonstrate, I did the old school PE, where you hold the ball and then you swing your arm under it. Of course.
No, but I mean, the fact that you just talk about the law of averages and, you're going to hit one out at some point maybe, but to drill all 25 in, I mean, that's 25 for 25 that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like aces, but
it doesn't matter. That's still the fact you're putting it in play and getting the point. That's crazy.
I'd never heard of that or seen that. And so, hey, congrats to Troy. We run out of things to talk about when describing Troy because they've been so dominant, but man, Coach Deborah Blasler just continues to do a fantastic job with the Trojans. So.
Yeah, I mean, you look at, the sports around what we've got, some of the small school stuff going on, like soccer, for example, too, like volleyball. We've got teams that are just, as good as you can get around the state. And that's just saying a lot about the coaching that we have, but the kids in this area too. This talent is just, it's there. We move forward towards the end of the year and stuff. I mean, we talk about some of these sports. We're already more than halfway through the season. As we approach fall sports time and getting closer to the month of October, it kind of feels weird because it feels like we just started. But, we're looking at districts is like a month out in volleyball. I mean, that's crazy to me, but that's the realistic part of it.
Yeah, I can't believe it. We're halfway through September and I'm like, man, it feels like the season is over. I know it's not, but it's moving fast, man. it's moving fast. You wanted to do a check on soccer too?
Yeah, I mean, you look at girls Charter. We can start with the girls, 3A girls. Coeur d'Alene Charter beating Timberlake 4-2. The boys won by the same score as well. But, you look at that program, undefeated in conference right now, beating a good Timberlake team. That's a good win for Coeur d'Alene Charter. And then you check in, Sandpoint just drubbed Post Falls 10-0. The Trojans are struggling a little bit. But Priest River got a good win over St. Mary's 3-0 in 3A soccer as well. So, on the girls' side, we look at the creme de la creme is Coeur d'Alene Charter right now. It's just playing lights out. So,
yeah, Coeur d'Alene. Yeah, we talked about Coeur d'Alene Charter and Timberlake were kind of on this collision course. Both were undefeated, and so now Panthers score one for the Panthers. I know they had a couple games get or matches get rained out, or the field wasn't quite ready because of all that rain we got last week or whenever that was. But Coeur d'Alene Charter will travel to or they're going to host St. George's. That's a private school from Spokane. Friday night. I believe they're the Dragons, the St. George's.
Yep, the Dragons. They are. You're right. That's a good call there. And I think Charter, if I remember right now, they've moved all their games to real life fields in Post Falls, where they hosted the 3A state soccer tournament last year, or the 4A. I can't remember. It was either 3 or 4A that they hosted there, but an awesome facility. And, they're going to get a chance to play under their lights there, which is super cool as well for the high school experience. They get their own Friday night lights for girls soccer there on Friday night against St. George's.
Yeah. And remember at Coeur d'Alene Charter, I mean, that is it. It is girls soccer, boys soccer, cross country. And that's it. So these soccer matches are
you get distance running and track, and that's about it.
Well, yeah, I was talking about for the falls.
Oh, for the fall sports. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. So these soccer matches are the big events for that Coeur d'Alene Charter community, and they do show up and show out for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And they're a team worth watching. They play quality soccer, and we talk about the boys. They're rolling on their own right on the 3A boys side as well. So
yeah. All right. Well, speaking of cross country, let's shift gears. We're not going to talk about cross. That was a bad transition. We're going to talk football. Speaking of cross country, let's talk football. Not my best work there.
It's all good.
But we've got to talk about Logos in football for a long time. And this is, I heard this from people at Logos. They said, hey, we're basically a basketball and a running school, right? We're known for our distance runners. We're known for our cross country. We're known for playing hoops, but we want to do more. And this football team, Ryan, it's incredible. They are working on building a new campus for Logos. So right now, Logos is kind of up on the hill, kind of close to the University of Idaho.
Yeah, it's to the east of Winco, kind of north of the Coeur d'Alene in like the Best Western there in Moscow.
Yeah, that's where the school is. But they've got all of this property on the west end of town, outside of town or south maybe. My directions are off, but anyways, a couple miles outside of town. I believe they're going to build a church because Logos School is affiliated with a church. But then they're going to build. I mean, they've already built the football field. They're going to have new school, new facilities. Their enrollment's going up. They fully anticipate that at some point they're going to be a 2A school. They're going to play 11-man football. But for a program that was only started 3 years ago in terms of high school, for Logos to now be where they are is really impressive to see. And they sent a big message with a blowout win over Cami, the defending league champ, last Friday night.
Yeah, no, you look at that Logos, and we talked about the offense, what they can do. They're showing up on defense too. And I know that pains a lot of White Pine League foes to hear that it's like, man, if we can just shut the offense down, we'll be able to be in some ball games. But now that they're playing defense too, you might not win the close games anymore either. So, I mean, they fly around the field, and offensively, they are just a specimen to watch with what they're able to do. And, Driscoll at quarterback has just done a great job leading that team. And, that group of kids, I know that's a special group. They've got some great receivers too in that program. And, I know that Driscoll's a pretty humble kid. He'd give all the credit to his teammates, but he's doing a phenomenal job leading that offense. And you look at Logos and just what they've done. I mean, they're ranked in the top 5 now in the state, and I think it's the first time they've ever been in the poll. So, what a cool week for them to make their first appearance. But I don't think they're done yet. You look at what they can do offensively, and teams that they kind of mirror a little bit. They could give some teams some fits if they play inside the dome or something like that come playoff time. If that, if things hold how they are and they're able to win the White Pine League, you don't want to play this team on turf. That's for darn sure. And they can make a ton of serious noise at the 1A D1 ranks just with what they're able to do offensively.
Yeah, so Jack Driscoll, 413 yards of total offense, 3 touchdowns passing, 2 touchdowns rushing. Dominic Porras caught 2 touchdowns. Henry Sundley caught the other touchdown. Ben Carlson scored on a rushing touchdown. Lucius Comus, the week we were there when they played Clearwater Valley, he balled out. So yeah, there's a lot of toys in the toy box on offense. But you're right. The story with Logos and the story that isn't getting reported is the defense. That's what's going to carry them in the playoffs, and it's impressive. They gave up 14 points to Kamei. Well, seven of those points came, or 6 of those points came on a kickoff return for a touchdown. So really, you take the special teams play out, and the defense only allowed 8 points.
Well, they do the same thing to Clearwater Valley too. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, did Clearwater Valley get a special teams touchdown on Logos as well?
No, they almost did. They almost had a strip and a score.
Gotcha. Okay. But you look at that, and Logos defensively, though, if they can hold their water, and you look at, they're weathering the most difficult part of their schedule, in my opinion, right now. And that's the dangerous part, is that they've already gone through Clearwater Valley, who is, kind of one of the upper tier teams that you expected to finish in the White Pine. They went through Kamei, who was probably the favorite, at least on the media side of things, to pick to win the conference again this year. I mean, you look at it, so they've got Potlatch coming up, and, who's going to push them? I mean, you got Prairie on the back end of the schedule, and that's about it. I mean, this team is locked and loaded, and, you talk about laser focus. This team is ready to rock and roll.
Right now, Logos and Potlatch are your 2 unbeaten leaders at 2-0. I think that's what everybody had coming into the season, right? Logos, Potlatch, yeah. No?
Check it out. It's the unlikely combo in Latah County owning football in the White Pine League, but
it's like your current leaders in the White Pine League are checks notes, Logos and Potlatch.
Yeah,
it's awesome,
2 teams. And it's great, and I think it's great for the conference to see that the parity and the balance that lies within the league. And Potlatch has their own difficult part of the schedule still to come as well. So you look at this, and realistically, I mean, I think if Logos stays healthy, they're in the driver's seat for a top 2 seed at state, in my opinion. Like, I just look at it, and they're gonna be right there.
Yeah, the Knights have already played the first and second place teams from last year, Clearwater Valley and Kamei. They get Genesee on Saturday. They're going to host Genesee. Genesee is struggling with numbers, and that'll be a win. Then they play Lapway, and that probably is shaping up to be a win too. And then Friday the 29th, the big matchup in Potlatch. We might have to see if we can go over and cover that game for IdahoSports.com, because that's going to be a huge game with big implications. Possibly
huge implications. I mean, playoff implications all over that game. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess the big question is, which teams from the White Pine are going to get in? Because last year, you'll remember, there was only four chairs available and 5 really good teams in Prairie. It was kind of like musical chairs. Prairie was left out. But I think the same thing is going to happen again this year, because they are giving a second bid to District 3, which is a league that struggles, to put it nicely. So,
and realistically, I mean, Oakley's still leading the state with their loss, but they lost to Kendrick, sorry. But I mean, at the 1A D1 ranks, they're unbeaten. So, things can happen down south though too. That conference is no slouch either. So there can be some shuffling going on down in that conference as well. And that's another prepcast for another district, but it definitely plays into how things shake out statewide.
Well, I will remind folks, this is a good time to remind them that we do have our standalone prepcast that is dedicated solely to 8-man football. It is the Idaho 8-man prepcast. We do it every Thursday night, and then we put it in your feed first thing Friday morning, get you ready for the slate of games. It's myself and Will Henneke, who handles the Idaho 8-man Twitter account. And then this year we got a great guest commentator every week, former Carey head coach Lane Kirkland, who just retired last year, has forgotten more about 8-man football than I'll ever know. And we'll definitely be talking about this. And if you're a fan up here and you want to see what Oakley's all about, I mean, we have already broadcast their game against Kendrick at the Battle in Boise on IdahoSports.com, but you get another chance to see Oakley Friday night. They're going to play Raft River in a game that we're covering on IdahoSports.com.
Which is going to be, I think it'd be a pretty good game. Like, realistically, they've played tough. The last probably 8 meetings have gone, back and forth. But it's been Oakley's a good team. Raft River's been a historically good team as well.
Yes. And so if you want to see what Oakley and Raft River are all about, it'll kick off at 6:00 Pacific time on Friday night. You can watch a little bit of that before you head out to whatever game you are going to. So, and one last thing on Potlatch, and then we'll move on. They've got a new tradition this year that's pretty cool, Ryan. Every time they score a touchdown, they've got a big, piece of wood, and they cut off a cookie. They take the chainsaw out and
that's awesome. That's great. That's like how Oregon State came out with the turnover chainsaw a few years ago. I don't know if you remember that or not.
Yeah.
But that's a great tradition, man. I remember coaching down in Pullman, and we had the touchdown cannon, which if we loved watching the opposing sideline when we knew that thing was going off, because you could just literally see them jump about 5 feet off the ground. But the chainsaw cutting off a round off the log, that's stinking awesome. That's great.
Yeah, and then after the game, they spray paint a number on it. Who was I think it's like who was the key player on the play that led to the touchdown, and they have the jersey number spray painted on there. It's pretty cool. So
that's awesome.
Keep it up, Potlatch. Let's stick with 8-man football quickly, Ryan, just to tell you that North Idaho game night this week on IdahoSports.com. We are going to be broadcasting for the first time ever from the Merriam Health Center field that they've got there in Worley. The turf. We're really excited.
That's a sweet facility, man. I tell you what, for a small school in the state, that is an amazing facility. So, hats off to the community and the Coeur d'Alene tribe getting that one done. But holy cow, is that awesome.
Yeah, I can't wait to showcase the beautiful facility on IdahoSports.com. I'll be there with Brian Hall, who coached at Lakeside once upon a time. So I feel like we had to bring
a walkthrough, like this. Here's some videos. That the inside of that facility is flipping awesome. Like the weight rooms and everything else, that health center. That is an unbelievable facility, and it's super cool for the communities of Worley and Plummer to have access to that. That is it's awesome. Yeah.
And the game itself should be pretty good. Lakeside is hosting Clark Fork. These are the two teams that are, fighting for second place behind Mullen St. Regis right now. But you'll remember Mullen St. Regis only beat Clark Fork 20-6 earlier this year. So it was a pretty close game. And so, Lakeside hasn't played Mullen St. Regis yet, so we're looking at, and this is a league that gets 2 spots to the playoffs. And so between these 3, and I would even include Wallace, there's going to be some good teams that are left out. And so these games are important.
Every game is important in this conference, and you just look at how they schedule. They play round robin, home and home against everybody, and this will be a great game. And the fact that the game's on turf, the weather's supposed to be good. You could be in for some offensive fireworks in that ball game between the Wampus Cats and the Knights.
Yeah, with San Roman for Clark Fork and Quincy Hall for Lakeside, the running backs are going to go wild in this one for sure. So that's Friday night, 7:00 kickoff from the Merriam Health Center in Worley. It's going to be Lakeside hosting Clark Fork. Should be a good time. The other game we're going to bring you for North Idaho game night this weekend, Ryan, is over in District 2. Non-conference tilt as Timberlake travels to Moscow. Now, Timberlake just suffered their first loss of the season to McCall Donnelly last week. How do they respond? And we've talked about this is the Moscow team that's a lot better than the past couple of seasons.
Did they lose to Shadle Park too, though? I'm trying to remember. I thought this might have been their second loss, but they're both non-conference, but I could be mistaken. I thought that they lost by 2 to Shadle, but
and I guess in my mind I'm thinking Idaho.
Yeah. No, not to correct you.
Fellow 3A teams,
We'll get some Bonners Ferry fans checking in going, giving the Timberlake extra respect they don't deserve. But I look at this one, it's going to be a response for Timberlake against the Moscow team that's been, they've been playing tough the last few weeks. Obviously they took some lumps, but they played their cross-state rival last weekend in Pullman. And it'll be interesting to see how the Bears respond after that game. But Moscow's been on the upswing as far as, what they've been able to do and playing a little bit more spirited and a little bit more physical. I look at Timberlake, they're just going to if you can establish the run, and you're just going to see a steady diet of, counter left, counter right, trap, counter, throw it for 45 yards and on repeat all night. You could see Timberlake, if they're able to establish a line of scrimmage, especially in the running game, they could short at that scoreboard pretty quick because they play offense with their play defense with their offense as well, just by ball control. So that should be a good ball game. I think Timberlake could easily get the victory over the 4A foe, and it sets up an interesting couple weeks for them as they've got Sugar Salem coming to town in a couple weeks as well. So that's going to be next 3 games. I look at them as going to be your next 4 games, I should say, is going to be probably a pretty good test for them.
Yeah, they're running the gauntlet a little bit. Moscow lost to Pullman 17-10 last week. The Greyhounds scored all 17 points in the second quarter. So Moscow's going, hey, we take that one bad quarter away. We're right in it.
And they played Clarkston tough too. So, I mean, you look at what the Moscow's been doing, and they got that big win over Kellogg, and, the Bears are on an upswing. So, maybe they catch Timberlake napping a little bit. I don't know. But, don't be surprised to see some trick plays coming out of the bag early on in that game.
Yeah, and Moscow had the ball at Pullman's 15-yard line late in the fourth quarter trying to tie the game. Noah Velasco gets strip sacked and fumbles, and that basically ended the game there. But, yeah, Moscow under Rob Bafus, much improved. Sandpoint, they're looking for their first win of the year. They had to travel all the way to Canada to find it. They went up north to play the Raymond Rockets from Alberta, and they get a 27-20 win.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, didn't that game take place at Grizzly Stadium?
Maybe it did.
I'm pretty sure that game was at Montana, and that was a game that they had set up previously because I know that the Alberta teams come down and played quite a few teams here in the States. But
they played at Raymond played at the Rocky Mountain Rumble this year in Rexburg also.
Yeah, and so I mean, Raymond's a solid team. I mean, they got a win at the Rocky Mountain Rumble if I'm not mistaken. But so like you look at Sandpoint though, that they had a new quarterback last week if I'm not mistaken, breaking in a few players in key position roles that don't have a ton of experience there, but it's the defense is where they're continuing to try to hang their hat. They've played physical defense the last few years, so it'll be interesting to see how Sandpoint comes down the stretch. And then you're looking at league opponents. Moscow's on the upswing. Sandpoint's treading water a little bit. Lakeland has been obviously slipped up to West Valley, but that's not necessarily a terrible loss because West Valley's pretty solid. But it'll be that 4A league, man. That's going to be end of the year. The last 2 weeks of the season should be really interesting. Come Lakeland, Sandpoint, Lakeland, Moscow, Sandpoint games.
Yeah, you're right. That game was at the University of Montana. I don't know how that slipped off my radar. I guess I was just looking at the schedule and I was like, Sandpoint at Raymond, Alberta. And I was like, well, I don't know. Alberta's not that far from Sandpoint.
It's not. I mean, it's only about hour drive into Alberta from Sandpoint. So it's not a terrible anyways.
No, but you're right. Neutral site game. Drew Lehman was the new quarterback. 14 of 17 passing, 190 yards. Yeah, very efficient. And now Sandpoint plays another neutral site game, Scaggs. They're going to resume their annual, for the past couple of years anyways, annual rivalry with Homedale. This year they're playing in Hermiston, Oregon, kind of meeting in the middle.
Game. Yeah, they're going to meet in the middle. Okay.
Yeah, so speaking of neutral site games, you were at the Kibbe Dome last week for Lake City's contest against Emmett. That sounded like it was a really fun and exciting game.
It was. I was impressed in the first half with Lake City. I think Emmett's running game just warmed down in the second half, but there was some fireworks. I mean, you got a special teams touchdown from the Timberwolves, got a 77-yard kickoff return for a TD. You look at what Lake City's doing, and Coach How is really trying to motivate his kids and get them to play, with a little bit of belief. I mean, there's talent there. We watched that, and Garrison and I were calling the game. You could see the talent show up. The one thing they're lacking a little bit is size up front, especially on the defensive side. They're getting pushed around a little bit, but they've got pretty solid linebacking core. Their secondary is not bad. They've got some good receivers, and so it's just a matter of putting things together. Their running game got shut down pretty early by Emmett, and so it put a lot of the weight on the quarterback Cherry to really carry the load. But he responded with a touchdown late there in the second half, but just couldn't surmount that rushing attack from Emmett. Just the Huskies ran the ball extremely well. I mean, 141 yards on, I think it was 34 carries for their running back, and Quentin Smith was our IdahoSports.com player of the game. But the thing that impressed me most was that front seven from Emmett was just, they were tough. They're going to give some teams in the SIC some fits if they're a running team just because they play so physical up front. But Lake City could come back down the stretch and, give some teams some headaches because they can play in the secondary a lot. And if they can take away the the passing attack from, a pass first offense, say like Post Falls or Lewiston, they could give some headaches to those two squads.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And if Lake City struggled with the run against Emmett, I mean, the opponent they're playing this week, Bishop Kelly. I mean,
there's no days off here.
No, that's all Bishop Kelly does is run the rock. So
yeah,
that'll be
extremely well.
Yes, that'll be an interesting, Class 4A versus Class 5A matchup, to be sure. Coeur d'Alene still sitting at 2-1. Post Falls is 2-1. The Vikings will play Lakeland this week. Post Falls will get Lakeland next week. We'll have that game for you on IdahoSports.com. Post Falls is going to host a University High from Washington this week. That should be a good test for the Trojans.
It's going to be a boat race, but Post Falls should blow out University. But stranger things happen in high school football. But I look at this game, I know that they've got a few key pieces that have been out in their lineup that they're trying to get back and healthy. So this could be a good week give another week for those guys to rest. But, look at guys like Tevin Burns and just being able to run the ball extremely well. They're going to have to get the offensive line kind of getting things moving in the correct direction. Last week, they struggled a little bit against a really good Sunnyside team. A physical Sunnyside team, but they're going to have to be a little bit more efficient in the passing game too. I think that's where they end up losing that game against Sunnyside, was the passing attack wasn't where it should be. But also, missing guys like Cooper Craig out there in the lineup didn't help too much for the Trojans on the secondary.
Yeah. So, yeah, you're right. University's 0-2. And see, this is why I like having you, because you know Washington football really well too, not just Idaho football. So
yeah,
I go, yeah, University should be a tough test. And you're like,
it used to be maybe 15 years ago. Yeah, not so much anymore.
Oh man, that's funny. Yeah. So there's a lot of interesting, in North Idaho. We don't ever get to. Besides the White Pine League, we don't ever get to see how the conference shakes out until the back half of the season because the leagues are so small. So, hey, It's just some more non-con action, and we'll see how it all shakes out. But should be a good weekend.
I think the Coeur d'Alene Lakeland game is going to be interesting. That was a really, really back and forth game last year. Came down to a single possession. Wouldn't shock me to see it again in the slightest. I think, Coeur d'Alene's offense wake up. That's going to be an interesting game. I'll probably go watch for a little bit tomorrow night to catch that game. But that one's going to be the one I think to talk about. If we're going to highlight something next week, we could have an interesting conversation about that game because there could be some things that we learned coming out of that ball game.
And Lakeland is just so banged up. Yeah. They're down to, at least last week, QB2 started. He got hurt. They were down to QB3. They lost 21-10 to Spokane West Valley. I had to play my high school in Montana played Spokane West Valley when I was in high school. They came over and steamrolled us. So
that was a weak opponent for me in high school. I don't have much good to say about the Eagles, but yeah.
Yeah. I think they didn't misrepresent, but we came in thinking, we're kind of the same size as they are, and we weren't at all in terms of enrollment.
Especially knowing the year that you graduated, those were some extremely good teams too that they had. So
yeah, they had a guy, I guess I was talking to somebody that was like a 4-time state champion wrestler or something. He was their fullback too, and just he ate our lunch. But anyways, yeah. But yeah, it was weird. We had Spokane West Valley travel out to Little Podunk, Stevensville, Montana. I was like, okay, whatever.
You got to do what you got to do sometimes for games, right?
Yeah, for sure. So
Lakeland, if they can get healthy, I really look at the IEL4A right now. If we're going to pause and look at just the non-conference and what we learned, what we've learned is we don't know jack squat yet. If you're really going to be honest, I don't know who's going to win that. I don't know who's going to win that league. I really don't at this point.
It's anybody's game. And so, yes, we know nothing. It'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out, though. And it's another great weekend of competition, Ryan. And we'll be back at it again next week to talk about, we'll try to keep it to we'll stick to sports next week. We kind of were all over the place today.
No gas tax argument next week. Yeah.
We'll put that one on the back burner. We'll do a special gas tax episode.
We really apply to our, libertarian front that we have that watches the weekly Prepcast. Yeah.
This is the stuff people came for here. This is what they really want. Yeah.
Taxation's theft. Yeah. You can name the Prepcast that one. No. We'll get a whole different base listening to us on YouTube if we named it that, but yeah.
And, okay, one last story, then we'll get out of here. All right. So my uncle worked forever for Montana Rail Link. It was a rail line company based out of Missoula, Montana, and basically the run is from Missoula to Spokane, right? And he made that run, I don't know, 1 billion times in his life. Well, he was telling me in the 80s, the state of Idaho tried to tax Montana Rail Link because they were transporting their goods across the state into Washington. And Montana Rail Link's like, no. And they went to court and the state of Idaho lost, obviously. But it was just wild that they would think they could tax a rail company just for transporting goods across the state.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll keep my thoughts to myself, but yes.
There's some politician out there going, oh, that's not a bad idea.
One random state representative that listens to the Prepcast picks up his next nugget for what he can run his campaign off of here.
Yeah. Anyways, we have come full circle, folks, here on the North Idaho Prepcast. We'll be a little more locked in and focused next week. But until then, enjoy all the competition this weekend. Friendly reminder, it is Timberlake at Moscow Friday night on IdahoSports.com. Clark Fork taking on Lakeside at the Miriam Health Center in Worley, also on IdahoSports.com. And for Ryan Scaggs, I'm Brandon Baney, and we'll see you next time.
We'll go off the rails next week.
We'll keep it on. We'll keep it on the rails, strictly on the rails.
There you go. I was trying to make the rail joke, but yeah, it didn't land.
No, it didn't. Anyways, we'll see you next time on IdahoSports.com.